Okay, let's dive into this fascinating explainer. Every single day, you make thousands of choices. But what if I told you that the vast majority of them, well, they aren't truly yours? Today, we're uncovering the invisible forces that are secretly shaping your everyday actions.
Seriously, I want you to think about this question for a second. Are you really making your own decisions? We all love to believe we're the sole authors of our lives, right? But the science of decision-making tells a slightly different, kind of mind-blowing story. You might actually be surprised to learn that your choices are constantly being guided by unseen hands.
And this brings us to a brilliant quote from Nobel Prize-winning economist Richard Thaler. He realized something absolutely profound. It's literally impossible to avoid influencing people's choices. Every single environment you step into, whether it's a physical room or a digital app, was designed by someone, and that very design inherently impacts your behavior. Which leads us nicely into Section 1, the rationality paradox, and why our brains need a little help. So here's the thing. We love to think of ourselves as perfectly logical beings, like computers. But the reality? We face what's called bounded rationality. Basically, human decision-making is naturally limited by our cognitive capabilities, how hard a problem is, and, the time we actually have to make a decision. To survive in a super complex world, our brains have to rely on quick mental shortcuts, which psychologists call heuristics. Now, what's really interesting here is how these specific mental shortcuts often lead to common cognitive biases that actively distort our reality. For example, we suffer from anchoring bias. That's when a high initial price makes a slightly lower one look like an absolute steal. Then there's the bandwagon effect, which fuels groupthink. We've got confirmation bias, keeping us locked into looking only for puzzle pieces that fit our existing beliefs. And of course, optimism bias, which makes us blindly run right past obvious risks. These aren't just random errors. Actually, this is literally how human intelligence works. Moving on to Section 2. Enter the choice architect, the unseen designers of your environment. Because our brains are so prone to these biases, a choice architect can step in. This is the deliberate crafting of decision-making environments to subtly influence individual choices, often without you even realizing it. Whether it's a grocery store layout, putting the fresh produce right at the entrance, or a digital menu highlighting a specific pricier subscription tier, someone intentionally designed that environment to guide your behavior. And the primary tool of the choice architect? It's called the nudge. This brilliantly illustrates the concept of libertarian paternalism. Now, that sounds fancy, but it just means institutions can legitimately steer you toward better choices while entirely respecting your freedom to choose otherwise. A true nudge doesn't ban junk food, right? It just places the apples at eye level and the candy way down on the bottom shelf. According to Thaler and his colleague Cass Sunstein, an architect can effectively align physical and digital environments with actual human behavior using 6 key tools. By anticipating how we actually think, like understanding the sheer power of defaults, expecting us to make errors, or providing feedback when choices get complex, architects can design systems that work smoothly with our natural cognitive flow. It's like a giant puzzle coming together. Let's look at Section 3, the power of nudges, and how they're changing behavior for the better. A massive, real-world example of this is the Save More Tomorrow plan. See, humans naturally suffer from loss aversion. We absolutely hate seeing our paychecks shrink today to feed our piggy banks for tomorrow. So by using default enrollment and taking money only from future raises to avoid that sting of loss, this simple nudge completely revolutionized how people secure their financial futures. A real game changer. We also saw this highly utilized during the COVID-19 pandemic. Poland, for instance, pre-assigned vaccination dates, leaning heavily on the immense power of defaults. Meanwhile, Singapore tied financial consequences to travel rather than forbidding it outright. These strategies effectively guided massive public health behaviors without limiting individual freedom. It really proves how scalable and impactful a good nudge can be. So what happens in a professional setting? Let's dive into Section 4, debiasing versus choice architecture. 2 ways to fix a broken decision. When businesses try to reduce human errors, they essentially have 2 paths. Debiasing tries to fix the flawed human mind itself, kind of like taking a wrench to the brain through intensive training and cognitive workshops. On the flip side, choice architecture simply changes the room the human is sitting in by modifying the structural presentation of options. The London School of Economics developed this fantastic framework to help organizations choose the right intervention. As you can see, they found that nudging is absolutely perfect when you have high trust,
high employee turnover, and a crucial need to lower the cognitive burden. Because nudges live in the environment itself, they stay put even when the employees leave. To put that into perspective and really prove the power of modifying environments, one massive experiment in the tech sector used these architectural interventions to reduce software design time by a staggering 75%. No way, right? By merely restructuring how options were presented, they completely bypassed the engineer's biases and massively boosted efficiency. Of course, it isn't all sunshine and rainbows. Let's look at Section 5, the dark side of nudging, when architecture works against you. Enter dark patterns. These are the malicious, manipulative cousins of the nudge. These micro-environmental tricks technically comply with the law while completely exploiting your cognitive exhaustion. You know what I mean? You aren't forced to click that massive glowing green accept button, but your tired brain just takes the path of least resistance when the decline button is basically hidden. The numbers behind this are genuinely alarming. Research shows that simply manipulating the choice architecture of online cookie banners can increase a user's likelihood to surrender their private data by up to 17%. You think you made a conscious choice, but the environment practically made it for you. And it gets deeper. When these dark patterns combine with platform algorithms, they create social media echo chambers governed by reinforcement theory. Through selective exposure, selective perception, and selective retention, these impartial mechanisms systematically funnel us toward increasingly polarized viewpoints by constantly feeding and rewarding our pre-existing beliefs. This leads us to the ultimate complication, Section 6. Who decides how we decide? The future of intelligent choice. We are now rushing headfirst into the era of intelligent choice architecture. This relies on artificial intelligence to present options and structure decisions. This profound shift transfers power away from the actual decision makers and hands it directly to the people and the algorithms designing our digital mazes. The AI is now the choice architect. But wait, we cannot escape the rationality paradox. If human decision-making is fundamentally flawed by bounded rationality, then the developers building our nudges are also flawed. So the crucial point is that AI-driven decision environments are not neutral. They inherit the blind spots and biases from the very flawed humans who trained them in the first place. So, who should be held responsible when an AI-driven environment inherits our human biases? I'm going to leave you with that provocative thought to ponder, because understanding choice architecture is the first step in taking your autonomy back. Pay attention to the defaults in your life, watch out for dark patterns, and remember, the way a choice is presented to you is almost as important as the choice itself. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.